This is Incursions, Battlefield 1's new competitive game mode, where you're going to have rank and a completely different play style. This is going to be coming as an alpha test in the next couple days, and it's still a little whiles out before it's going to be fully implemented. But while I was at Gamescom in Germany, they let me get a first look at and capture some footage of this 5 versus 5 competitive mode. And while you'll recognize the standard Battlefield 1 game, it's quite different in terms of the actual gameplay mechanics. Not only because it's a smaller map, smaller mode, but the classes are different and their perk sets are different. All of them being actually completely pre-made for you. You can't customize too much when you're going in, both the gun, gadgets, whatever. More on that in a minute. And you also are limited to specific classes. So I think there's a total of 7 different classes you can use. You will choose in a drafting system, although we didn't get to test this. You get to choose in a drafting system which classes will be selected. Each player on your team only can choose one of them. You can only have one tank driver, one medic. So you need to find the best combination that works for you. And when you take out the enemy, you can also tell which role they were playing, so you can kind of work off of that information as well. So let's get into these top 3 big differences. Number 1 is the actual game mode. The scoring system looks quite different, but is actually similar to the Conquest mode. The way they represent it and actually count a full point is different. As you get kills, you'll see a skull pop up in the top left, or as you capture objectives, you see a circle going around the time in the top, and as that completes, whoever holds the most objectives will get flags for how many they hold. However many flags you control is how many ticks you will get on your bar, and as you fill that bar up, that will essentially lock in one score for you. So it's not quite one life, but each life is extremely important. When you die, you want to make sure that medic is going to get the revive on you. The objectives that were active to capture was also different. When we first started out, we got apples, which was then locked. The enemy team secured Charlie, which was locked, and the only objective that was up for grabs was Butters. So everybody had to fight there. Whoever secured the objective then became the aggressor onto the enemy team's home base, essentially. We captured Butters. Our Apple's objective was still locked. They could not flank around to capture it. Instead, they had to defend Charlie and push back onto Butters. So what does that all mean? It changed the way that the game played. Instead of now having options to flank all the way around, you had to take the enemy team head on. You could still go for a flank and get to the back of B objective, but there was no running across all the way to the other side of the map where it would have taken a vehicle to get over to you. But instead, you could really respond to whatever was happening wherever you were on the map. And working together as a team was vital in order to push over to the other side. I only played 2 games of this while I was there, and when I did, our team stomped the other team both games absolutely. I think we lost 1 round the entire time we were there. We also had voice communication while we were playing, and I think this was a huge part of it. We were able to respond to each other, whether it was somebody getting downed, you could call for a revive. Because these are all pretty close quarters, you could react, respond, call out where enemies were, and our team seemed to be doing it much more than the enemies, which I think gave us a really big advantage. This is a pretty big playstyle shift from the regular game where you have 32 people on a team, you can't even talk to all of them at one time, to a point where you now have entire control of your team in a tight-knit environment with specific class loadouts, people playing specific designed roles. And that leads me to my second point, the different classes that you can play and what their objectives are. After seeing the trailer for Incursions at Gamescom, the biggest thing that I saw online was people concerned, wait, there's a tank in a 5 versus 5 game mode? Yes, there is. There's a tank driver class that is the only one that can spawn with a tank, and it's a light tank. Both teams get it, and it really was not that overpowered. It was very manageable in terms of taking it out because the assault class was such a strong counter to it, which I'll get to in a second. But there was also a field gun on the map, which, interesting enough, was only on one team's side, from what I saw. Either way, it was a good asset to have, but it could still be countered from the teams, especially if you were running with light tank grenades, which I did to specifically counter the tank. I mentioned Assault was pretty good at taking out the tank. That's because besides just having anti-tank grenades, he also has limpet charges from support. That's right, in this mode, there are cross-class equipment coming into play. When Battlefield was developing this, the developers, they looked at all the different pieces and put it together regardless of looking at the classes. And because these were all preset, you knew what your team had as well as what the enemies had. I didn't get to play all of them and experience it, but one of the ones I did get to try out that I thought was really interesting was the medic. Still equipped with the syringe, but the secondary was the sniper shield. The thing that, you know, nobody uses that much of, let's just be honest. People have gotten too good at sniping through that little hole to take you out. But that's not the only effect that it has for the medic. In fact, when the medic has that shield down, it actually becomes a small radius heal. So any friendlies that get near this shield will actually heal over time like it's a med bag or a med kit, but with the added benefit of you could actually hide behind it if things are getting a little tricky. It's also a little different from your standard med bag or kit because you can only put 2 of them down at a time, and when you put it down, it's there until you die, or you could pick it up and then bring it over somewhere else. The other big change with the class system is how you respawn. You can only respawn back at base at one of the objectives that you already have secured, or on your sniper or specialist class. The specialist is specifically the squad leader, armed with an SMLE as the only sniper option you can use, which I'm personally pretty happy about because it's a good one. But the specialist is even more important to keep alive because they are the spawn point for everybody else and who will keep your team locked and tight-knit together. But it's not just important for them to be doing well, as all of the different classes will need to be doing good in order to unlock their abilities. They added something similar to this in the bottom right, where you unlock flak or decrease suppression, and you can kind of customize your character, right? Well, this goes even a little bit deeper. As you're playing, getting kills, playing the objective, separate from the overall score system, you also earn experience for your player. This is individual to each game. It resets after each game, but as you're playing, you'll unlock these abilities. It takes more and more XP in order to lock each next one, but for the medic, for example, the first tier is that all enemies within your radius, or close enough to you, will automatically regain health just for being near you. The second is that your syringe, when you mark somebody to revive, will actually get a smoke bomb dropped on top of them automatically, making it much easier to get over to your friendly and get the revive. And the final ability is while you have your syringe out, you take much reduced damage, meaning that you could run through that smoke even easier to get the revives on your friendlies. There's kind of variations in the main game like this, but this takes it really to a whole nother level, and you can have all of these active at one time if you get that third ability unlocked, meaning that you just become a healing master. The list is too long to go through all the classes, what their specific gun is, their abilities, as well as their equipment, and I'm sure Battlefield will have some type of chart showcasing all of it coming out, if it's not already by the time this is up. But each of the classes will have a specific role similar to your Battlefield style, whether it's getting ammo to your anti-tanker, because you will only have one person who can give ammo on your entire team, or the medic holding position, the specialist making sure that they're still alive in case the medic goes down or can't get to that revive, so your team can still stay together and get that flank route, or hold off the enemies that are pushing on the objective. Overall, I had a really positive impression on the game because obviously we did so good in the games that I had played, but I also was really wanting to have a much closer game where it became a neck-and-neck battle, and a lot of people did get that experience. And that's what excites me about this game mode even more, is that there's going to be a proper matchmaking and rank system for this, meaning that ideally you should be playing against players of a similar class, a similar skill level, to where you're going to be in a much more heavier and intense battle in each of these games, where you have more control, and win or lose, that's more on your squad. In addition, you actually have a squad that becomes much more important. It's always fun to play this game together as a squad, but sometimes it can be hard to get your entire squad into a game that's not full, or it could take a while to get it set up. This seems like it's going to be a much faster system for that, and if you have a really good squad, you'll now, instead of just being at the top of the leaderboard, now be climbing rank. Now be playing against specifically players that are of a similar caliber to you, which in my opinion is really exciting, and it's got me optimistic about this game mode. From my experience with the game though, the majority of people seem to play it pretty casually in terms of go on, practice getting some shots, some kills, every once in a while get to the top of the leaderboard, and a lot of times people just play solo or maybe with 1 or 2 friends. If you don't have a full squad of dedicated people that know their role and know how to play, know what they're doing, you're really going to be at an extreme disadvantage if you go into a game, get queued with a couple other people that maybe don't really know what they're doing, and the enemy team does have that full 5-man team of players that know what they're doing. A lot of people may initially be turned off to this mode as the game's almost been out for a year, and really being competitive is not part of the nature of the game or what's been in Battlefield, at least from my perspective. But I also see this competitive nature as one of the leading driving factors for games having that longevity, with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, for example, being so competitive, especially at the end game, everybody just wanting to get that one win even when they first start playing, and then to go to 10 and maybe even 100 wins. That's what drives you to keep going with Rainbow Six Siege, trying to get up to Diamond and master your craft. So I think there is potential for this. There's a lot of players that do play in that competitive play style. So I'm interested to see how people react to this. If it's something that drives them to play the game more, you obviously still can play the regular game, so if people just stick with that and this really doesn't become a thing, but I'm interested in what your guys' initial thoughts are on it. Let me know in the comment section down below, and once this is out in alpha, I'll definitely be playing it, live streaming it, and trying to get a better feel for the mode just myself personally. But those are the big 3 differences that I found in this game mode, and some of my initial impressions on it. Thanks so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you in a new video soon. That's for this one. This is Stonematt64, over and out.